This is a map of Singapore's public housing, and these 1 million apartments, built by the state, are home to more than 80% of Singapore's population. And what's remarkable is that 90% of the residents actually own their homes. How is this even possible? Well, in most of the world, public housing makes us think of inferior construction, higher rates of crime, and carry a social stigma. In Singapore, it's quite the opposite. Even the richest of the bunch choose to live here, and for good reason, as these beautiful apartments spread out across Singapore's 24 new towns and 3 estates are self-sustaining entities with parks, schools, shopping centers, gyms, and hospitals. People only really need to leave for work, and when they do, they're not forced to take their car because Singapore's impressive subway, known as the MRT, is right at their doorstep, which combined with its light rail transit system facilitates commuters throughout the city. Singapore's evolution from one of the worst slums to a perfect city is nothing short of a modern miracle. And this quest to transform Singapore started under the leadership of Lee Kuan Yew. Singapore's first prime minister resulted in a model of urban design which is unmatched and quite frankly a masterpiece. But the way they pulled it off also involves some questionable and underhanded policies, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, I must say that the more I looked into this, the more I realized that this island city-state, which is half the size of metropolitan London, has not only redefined how cities are built, but also managed to alter the social fabric of its society. But it didn't get there overnight. Public housing was first introduced in Singapore in 1927, when it was a British colony under the Singapore Improvement Trust, or the SIT. As the city was struggling with its growing population and people were forced to live in slums and makeshift houses, and since Singapore was also a military base, constant conflict in the region only made things worse. Despite continued effort in the next 3 decades, SIT was only able to build 23,000 units, which were good enough for only 9% of the total population. And in 1959, when Singapore gained self-governance, the SIT, which turned out to be a massive failure, was dissolved and replaced with the Housing and Development Board, or the HDB. Although the financial backing of a newly formed government helped the HDB, there was a major hurdle they needed to overcome, which was convincing thousands of people living in tightly knit communities to leave their settlements and move into new high-rises, especially during mounting racial tensions in a culturally diverse Singapore. But then something strange happened, and a still unexplained fire broke out in one of the informal settlements, leaving thousands homeless. And since the HDB was successful in rehousing them, it gained the public support and paved the way for future legislations, first of which was the Fire Site Provision Act, which allowed the government to acquire land ruined by fires or any natural disasters, and was followed by the Historic Land Acquisition Act, which gave the state a legal framework to acquire private land, essentially giving them total control. While this was an important step in Singapore's history, it's what Lee did next that made all the difference. He did not want the residents to just rent their homes, but instead, he wanted to build a nation of homeowners, which, in his own words, would give people a stake in the country, a critical sense of belonging, and announce the home ownership scheme. People could now use the funds from the mandatory government savings program to purchase a home. It's called the Central Provident Fund, or the CPF, in which residents below the age of 55 are required to put 20% of each paycheck and employers must contribute another 17%, and this totally worked. To this day, buying a house is the reason for most CPF withdrawals in Singapore. And with the rapidly booming construction market, a new and unique problem emerged. How do you avoid the same hellish apartments like the ones in Hong Kong, which, for a majority of its residents, have turned out to be a living nightmare? And the HDB solved this by weaving nature throughout the city and by carefully positioning tall and short buildings, public spaces, and parks in such a way that it did not block the natural flow of air. No new clusters have the same color scheme or style, giving each building a unique look. The apartments come in all shapes and sizes ranging from 1 bedroom to 5, catering to everyone's needs, are maintained by the government, and perhaps the most important of all, they are welcoming, affordable, and high quality. While it seems like Singapore has discovered the blueprint for a perfect city, the critics point out that these houses are 99-year leases and all the apartments are truly owned by the state. and 90% of the land in Singapore is owned by the government, which is unheard of in the West. Well, whatever the case may be, Singapore has managed to bring diverse cultures together and do what pretty much no one else could. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.